Alright, what's going on, my people? You guys have waited a little bit too long, but I'm the man, the myth, the one and only Sir J Legend, also known as your captain of Squad X. I'm here today to give you none other than your weekly prescribed Bleach chapter review. I haven't been able to do Bleach chapter reviews for a few weeks now because I've been swamped with uni work and stuff. Like, I plan to do the chapter the day that it comes out, and then I get swamped with uni work because I'm in my final year now, so you can imagine all the stresses that come with that, and just life things in general. So, nonetheless, we're here today to quench your thirst and none other than give you that review. Today what I'm going to be reviewing for you is Bleach chapter 647, entitled The Theatre of Suicide. Again, I would have called it The Suicide Theatre because that just makes more sense, has a better ring to it, but nonetheless, let's just dive into things. Alright, the main highlights of this chapter are obviously Shunsui Kyoraku, my favourite captain, releasing his Bankai. Now, we can go into like crazy speculations like, you know, what his Bankai could be, but we all know that from what Bankais tend to be, they tend to be an extension of or a powered up version of whatever their Shikai ability is. Now, on the translation of the manga stream translation, because that tends to have better, more accurate translations, the translation says like, you know, the secret of heavenly blossoming madness. Okay, that doesn't give much clues yet as to what it could, you know, realistically be. But then it says the black pine double suicide. First part could also be bones of the heavenly blossom madness. Okay, so heavenly blossom madness is essentially, from what it seems to me, to be like its own living creature. And if you look at the shadow on the last page of Shunsui when he's actually releasing his Bankai, what's stemming out from like, you know, his body and his shadow seems to like it's not like arms, it's almost like branches of a tree. And we all know that trees are essentially living creatures. So when you look at it from that regard, you can take it as like, okay, this Bankai is essentially its own living being. The game has no longer just become a game that you play, it's essentially become its own living entity. So now they're going to be playing a game that's essentially alive. So again, I'm guessing it's going to be kind of like an evolving game. So where Shunsui had multiple different games in his Shikai, I'm guessing now it's going to be essentially just one game, but one game that's going to be constantly evolving as time goes by. So it's going to make it very hard to keep up, and basically the effects of the game and basically what the game entails is going to be a lot more deadly. So whereas his Shikai was a lot about like children's games, I'm guessing that his Bankai is going to be like very much adult games and very gruesome games, things of that nature. Now, another thing we notice in this chapter as well is that we bump into Star Knight M, the Miracle, and then the first thing we notice is that, you know, Renji goes to take him on because obviously he's a badass now with his new and improved Bankai. The character actually has some relevance again, but we see that he's like, nah, you know what, your only chance of winning is to take me all on at once. So it just leads me to wonder, like, you know, how powerful is this guy? And although Star Knight X said that, you know, he was the closest to, like, you know, Yuha because he was the final Star Knight, just based on what the powers and their letters are, I would assume Star Knight M is stronger. But you can argue that because you're saying that, oh yeah, you know, it takes the Captain Commander to be able to take on Star Knight X. But, you know, you can kind of debate that either way here or there. There's not really anything to dive into or go on about that. This chapter in itself is a very simple chapter because there's only really two main things to pick out that happened. Other than that, not too much happened in terms of progression, and there was essentially no character development except for in Star Knight X and Star Knight M. Star Knight X in the sense that, you know, like now that he's gone into his final holy form, he's a lot more confident, like, you know, and he's essentially mocking his opponent. Whereas before he just seemed to be like, you know, the very like, you know, just like chill type, oh yeah, you know, I'm just going to take you out and just move on. And Star Knight M now, he seems to be a lot more boastful than we seemed to be before. Yeah, he seems to be like the kind of character that, you know, like he's got a big mouth and, you know, like he's all like up for a fight and whatnot. But now in this chapter, it's even more so. Other than that, is there really much... Hold on, my computer's about to lock. Yeah, other than that, is there really much more to dive into about this chapter? It's actually a very simple chapter in terms of, you know, content. But nonetheless, that's going to be it for my chapter review this week, guys. Very short, but other than that, what much happened? If it was a chapter that had like a lot of dialogue and basically a lot of exposition, there'd be a lot more things for you to dive into and speculate about. But other than what I've already touched upon, there's not really much more to deal with in this chapter. If it was a chapter like what chapter was it again? It was a chapter where Yuha, he was told about, you know, about his birth, about him being blind as a baby and stuff like that chapter. There was a lot to go off of, but in this one, there's not really much to go on. Chapters that have fights in them don't really tend to have much in terms of, you know, review potential. But that's just it for my review this week, guys. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Hope you guys have enjoyed the very small points that I've made. And you know what, I'll be back next week for my next Bleach chapter review. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's your boy, Sir J Legend, also known as your captain of Squad X. I'm signing out. As always, my people, take care and peace.